When most people open the Old Testament, they see ancient stories and laws, but ancient Jewish readers saw something more than just that. A literary masterpiece. They saw patterns and poetry and puzzles that revealed God's design. The Bible isn't just a single book. It's a sacred library, and the writers didn't just tell us truths. They wove it into the very structure of the words. And so when you read the Old Testament, it breaks into three spaces: the Torah, the writings, and the prophets. So the Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament. It's sort of the first shelf in the library. So it's Genesis through Deuteronomy, where story and law kind of intertwine. But Genesis isn't just history, it's artistry. And the Hebrew storytellers used puzzles called chiasms, where they reflected truths. And so there was a visual animation of truth there. And people had to read the story and look for the problem to find the solution. So in everything, there's a center of chiasm. So just when you read, especially the first stories of Genesis, know that the poems are built in a chiastic structure. They also used wordplay. Adam is made from Adamah, the ground. Eve's name, Chava, sounds like life. Their names have theology in the sound. They also use morphing between related words. So like in the Torah, every word is a placement and a pattern. Law is framed by story, and story is framed by the covenant. Well, now you also have the prophets, and in the prophets there was poetry, and there was, of course, prophecy. And so the pace changes. It's in history, yes, but it's told with some fire. Poetry isn't just future telling, it's also covenant binding. The prophets use parallelism and rhyming in their sounds. Like, for example, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the works of his hand. In Hebrew, that all rhymes. And it's the rhythm of revelation that the writers are trying to convey. The prophets also love something called an inclusio. What begins with something also ends with it. So Isaiah opens the Holy One of Israel and ends the same way, framing the entire message in the space of holiness. And woven through the books are also numbers: 7, 40, 3, 7 signals completion, 40 marks testing and transformation. Numbers become part of the narrative, not for counting objects, but really for purpose. And so prophecy was never just information. It was about composition of poetry and healing for the soul. It was justice and rhythm. And these are important as you read different types of books in the Old Testament. And then there were the writings, the wisdom and the wonder of the writings, sometimes called the Ketivim. And this section is really the heartbeat of Hebrew emotions. There's songs, there's reflections, there's wisdom. Psalms, for example, they aren't arranged randomly. Some are acrostics, where a verse begins with a letter of the alphabet, like Psalm 119. It's worship from Aleph to Tav, from A to Z, symbolizing that praise covers everything. And so the Hebrew alphabet is a major part of what's happening. Other psalms use repetition like a drumbeat. His love endures forever. These refrains trained memory, so people didn't just read truth, they sang it, and it became part of their mindset. And so you can see parallelism and you can see contrast in some of the poetry there. It's short, it's sharp, it's designed to sort of be an earworm and echo in your mind. And then there are stories like Ruth and Esther where we find irony in the narrative. The outsider becomes the hero, the last becomes the first. And it's as if the text is whispering, watch what God does next. Because it's sometimes super unexpected. And then lastly are things like I mentioned, chiasm, the inclusio, the wordplay, the rhythm. They aren't just decorations, they're theology. And even the structure of Deuteronomy mirrors the ancient covenant, with a treaty and a preamble and a history and stipulations and blessings and witness. It's as if to say this isn't random law, it's a relationship written in a contract of love. Even the genealogies have signs and symbols and pattern things that are meant for you to learn something. Every symmetry, every number has some meaning. And so as you read the Old Testament and you look at some random genealogy, you need to ask yourself, what were the original authors trying to convey to their audience? Don't rush through the Old Testament. Pause in each story and ask, what is the writer doing?